So, as if they need another win, here's another win for the narcissistic folks. There is a decent possibility that they might be cooler than us, and the data supports it. An article in the journal Experimental Psychology that was written by Todd Pizzuti, Caleb Warren, and Jinji Chen. I want to give them a shout out because I really liked the article. They studied what makes a person good versus what makes a person cool. And they looked at this across cultures around the world. While there was some overlap between cool people and good people, there were some traits and patterns that the cool people had that didn't overlap with the good people. So let's start with the good people, because why not, right? Let's start with the good people first. Now, the good people, compared to the cool people, the good people they followed rules more. They were what we call more conforming. So they followed rules. They do what they're asked. They don't deviate from what the group wants that much. They're more traditional, warm, agreeable, universalistic, conscientious, and calm than the cool people. Those all sound like lovely qualities. I can see why they're called good people. The idea of being universalistic means a person who believes that everyone should be treated similarly. And it's a sort of caring for the larger world, this idea that everyone deserves justice, or being open to other points of view respectfully, and different kinds of people, and caring about the environment. I like that whole universalistic thing. Now, what about the cool people? Well, the cool people, compared to the good people, were more extroverted, hedonistic, or like pleasure-seeking, powerful, adventurous, open, and autonomous. Now again, the word hedonistic refers to pleasure-seeking and the idea of making pleasure and enjoyment a priority. In this study, to be more open referred being more open to new experiences. And by autonomous, these authors meant that these were people who do what they want, how they want, and when they want. Now, in this study, powerful referred more to the idea of having money and being able to tell people what to do. And these authors found that this framework for coolness and these findings about coolness were actually consistent across a wide array of cultures around the world. The authors suggest that coolness is a form of status. So it's a state that people may want to pursue. And cool people are then considered people with higher social status. It's like hip cred. But while all of the cool traits are not indicative of narcissism per se, let's face it, a lot of them are patterns that tend to be part of that whole narcissism complex, especially extroversion, hedonism, power, and the insistence on doing things their way, heaven and hell be damned. Now, these are things associated with narcissism that are not narcissism, right? Obviously, narcissism takes in more territory, including things like the low variable empathy and the entitlement and the grandiosity and the attention seeking, etc., etc. You know the list. But coolness as status, well, again, narcissistic people are very status oriented. The authors also make the point that cool people also lean more into innovation and they foster innovation. Perhaps that relates to the idea, especially in our current time, of the current cult of genius, especially tech genius. These are often people who actually have relatively low levels of empathy and behave really badly, but golly, are they cool. So cool and good aren't the same according to these folks. Those good folks Well, they map onto the stuff we see in personality traits like agreeableness, and then sprinkle in some empathy and conscientiousness, which interestingly is the personality type which is like the most likely to get stuck in narcissistic relationships. You can see how that list of good traits could make a person more vulnerable to trauma bonding and making excuses and not wanting to break away from a family or a relationship, that traditionalism piece. Now, this can mean that there is a higher probability for narcissistic people to have these cool traits, right? Because they kind of map on. And if the cool traits are the traits that you observed or you take note of, especially when you first meet someone or you see them on social media, listen, an extroverted, hedonistic, powerful, adventurous, open, and autonomous person on social media is living life on their terms, having fun all the time, and making it a priority, trying new things, and is a boss. You know that in this day and age that's considered attractive. So you may be drawn to their coolness. But again, from a sheer probability standpoint, they may also have some of that narcissistic stuff that correlates with those coolness traits. Again, it's probability. It's like betting on a horse race. Not a horse I'd bet on. Probability means likely, right? So if the clouds are in the sky and the temperature is changing and the winds are kicking up, it is probable. It's a probability. It's likely that a storm is coming. It's not definite, but I definitely close the doors and take an umbrella. If a person has come to your house in the past and they have left a mess, and then some things were missing, and then they borrowed your car and returned it with a dent, the probability is that when they ask you to borrow money, they aren't going to return it. At least not in a timely manner. They might, but it's not a good bet. And in that same probability vein, there seems to be a decent probability that a cool person may also have some of the other antagonistic / narcissistic traits. But the draw and the attraction or the intrigue, easily now you can see to a narcissistic person, is the cool factor. And the fact that society places a premium, especially in a social media society, on hipness or coolness. And to the degree it means that this cool person is an open thinker or an innovator, that can really feel quite enticing. So let's take it all back to the time in our lives when cool really seemed to matter most. I mean, let's face it. Those cool kids, they had it made in middle school and high school, didn't they? Things seemed to come easy to them. They definitely seemed to be having more fun. They had bigger groups of friends. They did cooler things. And stuff definitely seemed to go their way. I say this as a decidedly uncool kid during middle school and high school, and frankly, a pretty uncool adult. So I am introverted. I am definitely whatever the opposite of hedonistic is. I'm definitely open to other perspectives, and I'm adventurous. But I do have to say, I remember even back then, as a kid, I looked at the breezy ease of cool adults, and even now as an adult, I look at the breezy ease of cool adults with a bit of curiosity, awe, and a little envy. And what I love about this study done by these authors is that you can easily see how there are cool adults out there who may not be narcissistic. They may just be cool, maybe not as warm and lovey as those good people, who personally are more of my jam. But cool, I'm cool and not narcissistic. Those are people could just be folks who live on their own terms and live big in a world that places a lot of value of do what you want when you want. Maybe they're cool because they're different. Maybe they're cool because they're different than the people we may not consider cool, like our parents, or people in our lives that are more traditional and maybe not as inspirational or aspirational, but they're steady and they're safe. Listen to me. I want to live in the world where the good ones are the cool ones, but clearly this data and this research shows that that ain't happening. What I hope that these authors do, I hope you're listening, I hope they do a follow-up study where they look at correlations between coolness and narcissism and antagonism and dark tetrad type stuff. Because to me, that's the next step in understanding this. But as I said, going from a straight probability standpoint, cool and narcissism, according to their data, seem to have some real shared patterns. So that means you can admire the cool folks or even covet the clothes they wear, the vacations they take, or the cars they drive, or even want to hang out with them for a minute. But you may want to marry the good ones. We have provided a link to this research study in the video notes for you who want to dig into this. It's actually a really interesting study.